guest this week on Veterans Chronicles is World War II and Korean War veteran Tom Toski. He served in the U.S. Navy. Tom, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
We just interviewed your brother for another episode,
Yeah.
so I know how this first answer is probably going to go. Where were you born and raised?
In Northampton, Massachusetts. I was born actually in the little town of Hayesville,
Okay.
and that's where we started. And then we always say Northampton because it's a city, not a little town, 1,000 people.
Right. And what was it like growing up in the Depression?
It was tough. It was, because I was brought up with 9 in the family, with my father working 24/7, and he was a great dad. He brought us all up, and I had a lot of respect to Jimmy Fisher, who's here, mother. She brought us all up. She was a very nice lady. 17 years old, she took over when my mother died. I was 7 years old. She was 46. And that's where it all started. She was a great lady. I stayed with her. She was not up to 92, and she said, because I'm 92 now.
Who's older, you or Bob?
No, I'm older.
You're older.
Yeah. But I'm always second class. He's a celebrity. I'm just a peon down the road.
Well, you're a pretty acclaimed teacher yourself.
Well, I worked hard at it. I taught myself, and I am very successful at teaching. I still teach. I teach at the Western Mass Family Golf Center in Hadley, Mass. And I also teach at Banyan Cay Country Club in West Palm Beach.
What do you remember about Pearl Harbor Day when the Japanese attacked?
Yeah, I was riding a bicycle and in the middle of our little town, and somebody told me that the Japanese had just bombed Pearl Harbor. I just said, "Where's Pearl Harbor?" Didn't even know where it was, and then they told me that the Japanese, that was in Hawaii. That's what I remember by.
Were you itching to get in the fight?
Yeah, well, I was a young kid in high school, and then after a couple of years of war, I wanted to get in the service.
Did you enlist?
No.
Drafted?
I was drafted. In 1943, and I still was in Williamsburg High School. I was a senior, and I'd been drafted, and I was going to the draft board, and my sister, Jimmy's mother, said to me, she said, "You tell them you're still in high school, and they will defer you." So I went there, and I was standing in line, and a guy ahead of me getting interviewed by, and the guy says, "How you like the Navy?" He said, "I don't like it." He said, "I want to go in the Army." And the guy says, "Well, I guess you're going to go in the Navy. Get the hell out of here." So I said, "Well, when I go in there, I'm going to keep my mouth shut." So he went in. I went in and sat down. He says, "How do you like the Navy?" I was fine. He said, "Get out of here. You're in the Navy." And he did me a favor because I loved the Navy.
Yeah?
Yeah, I had a nice place to sleep, nice place to eat 3 times a day, not like in the Army. But it was a great experience for an 18-year-old kid coming out of a small town of Haydenville.
Where did you go for training?
I went to Sampson, New York for 8 weeks.
And what did they teach you in that training?
They just taught us the basics, marching and doing all the calisthenics and you shot a rifle. I don't know why that. I was in the Navy, but because I never. And that from there, they sent me to home, and I went back in, and then went to Philadelphia Navy Yard. They shipped me down there.
And then what?
And then I was shipped again to Norfolk, Virginia, the naval base down there. And that's where I was assigned to the USS Wilmar, DE 638. And that was in Vallejo, California. So we went all the way across country with a bunch of sailors that were on my ship, and we picked up our destroyer escort in Vallejo, California. It was just commissioned, and we all went aboard the ship, and then went on a shakedown cruise down in San Diego and back. I wasn't a very good sailor. tough times, but I made it.
What was your role on the ship?
I was in Norfolk, Virginia, and this officer come up to me. He says, you got a little talent. We're going to make you a sonar man. I says, a sonar man? What's that? He says, underwater sound for submarines, and we're going to train you. So he started me training, going to school, and it takes a lot to get used to the pinging sounds of the equipment you have, and then they shipped me and a bunch of our sailors over to Vallejo, California. And when I got there, they had enough sonar men, so I didn't go into sonar right away. It was probably 3 months, and then one of the sonar men got shipped out, and I went in and took his place. And it was pretty tough riding on that DE. 300 men on there, and you bounce around like a cork all the time. If it got rough, it was tough.
How big of a ship is it with 300 men?
That's, I don't know how much he can tell you. He was on one. I don't know how long it was, but it took you 5 minutes just to go from one end to the other.
Yeah.
It didn't take it too long. It was mainly about 300 sailors on it that we had, yeah.
And when did you ship out to the Pacific?
Well, it was in Vallejo, California, and then right after January of 43, 44, we shipped out and went under the Golden Gate Bridge to Hawaii. From there, we went out to the South Pacific and went in and stayed out there for 2 years.
Did you see Pearl Harbor?
Oh, stayed there in Pearl Harbor, yeah.
What was it like?
Oh, I didn't spend too much. I saw where all the ships were. They got bombed during Pearl Harbor. But what I was more interesting, I had a brother, my brother Jack, and he was in Hawaii.
Oh, okay.
So I went to the Red Cross, and they got me in contact with him, and I saw him before I went overseas. He said, "What are you doing in the Navy?" I said, "Well, I got drafted. What else you want me to do?" Yeah, but he was, of course, I hadn't seen him in 3 years.
So the first thing he says to you is not, "Hey, it's great that you're here. It's why are you in the Navy?"
Yeah. He was something. He thought it because when I left, I was just a little kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course I was probably 15, 16 years old, and when I became 18, I got drafted. So.
Right. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Oh, so then you went to the South Pacific. Where did you go first?
Well, we were assigned to the Solomon Islands, Treasure Island, and the Solomon Islands, and then we worked out of there, escorting ships around around the South Pacific, you know, because we were sonar for underwater sound. There was always probably 3 or 4 DEs circling the ship that it was a battle wagon or aircraft carriers or troop ships or supply ships and stuff like that. We were always doing that.
It varied which ships you'd be escorting.
Yeah, whatever was, we sailed around. I went around the world twice on the South Pacific. That's how many miles we went.
Wow.
Yeah.
What are some of the common places that you went, or did it all over the place?
I'm proud of what because I have 5 battle stars. I was in 5 battles, and I was in the Solomons, and then we invaded 2 small islands, Asia and Maype Island, where they were so small that that's all we did was to drop off the troops, and then they took over the island because the island had radar on it and was kind of making contact with our airplanes, so they took the islands over. Mm-hmm. And from there, I went into Philippines and Leyte Gulf. Got caught in the harbor. The Japs had us surrounded. I just looked at TV the other day, and they had a nice little story about that, how Admiral Halsey beat the Navy at the head of Leyte Gulf when they surrounded Leyte Gulf, and we were inside there, and we had to make smoke, and because the torpedo bombers were coming at us every night. Luckily, we didn't get hit. One of our tankers got hit, made a big hole in it, and they had just taken their oil out, of diesel oil, and it didn't sink the ship. So then we went from there, and we got ready to go to Okinawa.
Let's pause right there, Tom. We'll be right back with Tom Toski on Veterans Chronicles. We're back on Veterans Chronicles. Honored to be joined today by Tom Toski, U.S. Navy veteran of World War II and Korea. And Tom, you were just telling us about the harrowing experience in Leyte Gulf, and then you were on your way to Okinawa.
Yeah, that was later on when they made. I can tell you the day we landed on Okinawa, April 1st, Easter Sunday, 1945. Yeah, that was quite a day.
Tell me about it.
We went in there with the battle wagons. We were screening for the battle wagons for submarines. And they just landed, and there was very little bit resistance. So we were screening for the Arkansas battle wagon, and it was shooting their big guns over on the island. And my place, when I was a sonar man, I learned to be a sonar man, and it was always up next to the captain, because that's where my station was. See, because once we got in contact with a submarine or something like that, we took over the ship and told the captain what he had to do, and he just relayed it down to his speed and so forth like that. Well, we were screening for the Arkansas, and the Arkansas kept moving in closer because there was no resistance. So we followed it in. And just as soon as we got in there close, I was up there next to the captain, sitting down, and I used his binoculars to look at what was happening on the island. Next thing I know, there was shells landing around the Arkansas. They didn't hit it. So I told the captain, I said, they're shooting at the Arkansas. He said, yeah, I see that, but I'm going to get out of here. So he started the ship to get away. Next thing I know, whoppo, right by us. And we took off. He put it in full speed, and when he did, the shells were landing on our fantail, not hitting the ship, and then boom, boom, followed us out right out. And I was there up on the thing, and next thing I know, he's on the microphone. And he says, "All right, all you guys on the fantail better check your skivvies." So done that. But then we were sent out to screen for the submarines on the island, so way out, and with the other ships. And we were out there, and I'm telling you, you want to see how bad those kamikazes were coming in. They were, hitting the ships all over the place. And we were shooting at one with our guns and the aircraft guns. And the next thing I know, here he comes. He started at us. Well, I'm telling you, you never see guys just get so scared. They were jumping from one deck to the next, and I don't know why, but they did it. And there was one guy who was training a big gun. He was training, and then he saw the ship, that airplane guy coming down. He was going to jump over the side, and one of the guys standing there grabbed him and said, "Get back on your station." That's how you never realize, until something like that happens. And it missed us by probably 10 feet. We were lucky. God was with us. Of course, we had a great captain. That guy could maneuver the ship so good. And I was standing there, pretty soon this signalman came up, Bob Craig, and I always remember that. And he came up, he called me Ski, because my name was Toski. So I says, "Yeah, well, Bob, what's the matter?" He says, "My foot, something wrong with my foot." I said, "Well, what'd you do?" He says, "I jumped from the signal bridge down to the boat deck." And the ship, the airplane landed about 10 people. So when it blew up, a little rivet like that, went into his foot. So I looked down there, and there it was, and I pulled it out. I kept it for a while, and I lost it. I can't believe it. And I told him, I said, "Now you can get a Purple Heart." I said, "That's what you get for jumping." Yeah. And we stayed there, and one of the sailors aboard ship got appendicitis. So we had to go in to the atoll where all the ships were anchored. There was a hospital ship there. So they sent us in there with him, and that was lucky because the ship that took our place got clobbered.
Really?
Yeah, because there was somebody in there. So we got into the atoll, and you can be really surprised how much that they were even dropping the kamikazes were coming in there, and they hit one LST, and we were pretty close to it, probably a mile away, and we went over there to save all the sailors because they were jumping off the ship because the ship was burning up. So we went and picked up those guys, and then the captain tried to put out the fire. When he did, he swung the ship up too close and ripped the side of the ship, of our DE, put a big hole in it. And then they sent us to Guam. I thought probably they would send us to the States, but they sent us to Guam.
Guam instead. Let's pause right there. Tom will be right back on Veterans Chronicles. We are back on Veterans Chronicles. I'm Greg Columbus, honored to be joined today by Tom Toski. He's a World War II and Korea veteran of the U.S. Navy. And you were just telling us the harrowing story of Okinawa. And keep going. You're left us at Guam.
Yeah, we took us over to Guam, and that's when they said they fixed us up. We stayed there about a month. I loved it because I was playing baseball back and forth on the dock with a couple of sailors, and a couple of Army guys walked by, and I says, "Hey, where's APO so-and-so?" They says, "Oh, it's down the other end of the island." I said, "It?" I said, "That's where my brother is." So I was going to go see my brother, the one that I saw in Hawaii. So I got a little liberty, and I bummed down all the way about 20 miles. And of course, you're picking up by jeeps and stuff like that. And I walked in, and he was sleeping, and I woke him up. He said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, we told him what happened." And he says, "How'd you get here?" I said, "I bummed." He says, "You crazy?" He said, "There's still Japs on this island." I said, "Well, I made it. The guys were very good." And then after that, we got fixed up, and they sent us with the Third Fleet, and we got with the Third Fleet and went up off the coast of Japan to get ready to invade Japan. Unfortunately, they dropped the atomic bomb, and two of them, and we were saved just because the war was over. They signed, and we were 500 miles off the coast of Japan, getting ready. You couldn't believe the number of ships that was off that coast, getting ready to go in with troop ships, tankers, all kinds of stuff was getting ready to go in. Well, we went into Yokohama, Tokyo Bay, and then he gave us liberty. Was so happy to get liberty after 2 years out the South Pacific. We did nothing but just go on the island and drink beer. and just like one kid said, he said, "Tommy, you know what, we've been out here so long." He says, "The natives are starting to turn white." And I said, I don't know, it's because we hadn't seen any women at all almost in 2 years. So we went, that was great. I went over and had liberty on Yokohama, and you couldn't believe how that place was devastated. It was burnt right down to the ground because they dropped on nothing but fire bombs, because everything was, I guess, wood.
Wood, yeah.
And then we walked around for probably from 10 o'clock to 5 o'clock. We had to go get back aboard the ship. But it was so great to just get out and get off the ship and see some nice, they were very funny, but we couldn't separate ourselves from five. Yeah, we had to go on five guys together because they didn't know if you were by yourself, you might get killed by one of the Japanese people. So we walked there back and forth and with that, and then we were there for about 2 weeks. Then we got the big deal. Go home. Loved it. We made a pennant that went from the fantail all the way up to the bridge. Big, long, we're going home. And we loved it. We went back to Hawaii, then San Diego, and then they sent us to Norfolk, Virginia. We had to go down through the Panama Canal and so forth like that. But I was so happy that, after 2 years and 18 years old, I was now almost 21, and become through with what I've been. I have 5 battle stars, and so forth, and came home and went to Norfolk and gave us liberty, and I went home for 30 days, and then after I got there, I got discharged.
Let me go back to a couple of those other battle stars. You talked a little bit about what happened at Leyte Gulf. I just want you to talk a little bit more about that when it looked like the Japanese had you dead to rights.
Right. We were caught in there. We went in with MacArthur with the ships to help, land all the troops, and we were screening for oil tankers and supply ships, and we got caught in there, and we had to keep moving because of the torpedo bombers coming at us at night. We had to sleep on our battle stations because for about 5 days. And they would just bring the sandwiches we'd eat, and everybody stayed there and made smoke. But we ran out of smoke, so now they started to pump it out of the stacks just to cover the battle, the supply ships that we were screening for. And then finally we could see way up in Lane where the battle was really taken care of, because Halsey was up north, came back down to because we were screened in and did a job on the Japanese, and they finally took off. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I think the good Lord was with me. Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
Well, so I'm Catholic, and I was an altar boy. And when I was drafted, I said my last Mass with Father Murphy, and he gave me a sermon to the people I didn't know that I was going in the Navy, and I think with his, being a nice priest, sending me off like that, it stayed with me, and I think he took care of me.
Did you stay in the Navy all the way to the Korean War, or did you leave and come back?
No. Bobby told you all about his great golfing career. I don't have that, but we both, after the war was over and came home, my brother Jack got into golf. And we were all going down to Miami to play golf and probably play on the tour. My brother, Jack, myself, and Bobby. Because Bobby always wanted to be, on the tour. So we went down, and I went down with him because I was playing well too. So we had a lot of problems. So we get to Miami, and Bobby was there. And I didn't have enough money, so I caddied for him so he could play. And it was nice because I met Jimmy DeMeritt and a few of the other guys. And I ran out of money, so I had to get myself a job. And Bobby was working for the airlines, and I got a job as a dental technician, or just a delivery boy over in Miami Beach. And I stayed there for 3 years. And I was staying there, and I wasn't making much money, so I says, well, how am I going to make some extra money? So I rejoined the Navy, and I stayed in the reserves. Well, when the Korean War broke out, that's when they came to me and took all the sonar man. I was a sonar man second class. And they said, you got to come in and train some of the kids because you got a lot of experience. So that's where they sent me aboard a destroyer, H-64 USS Ellison, up in Norfolk, Virginia. So I stayed with the ship, and I was the training. We trained about five kids that were just came in the Navy and didn't know much about sonar. Mm-hmm. So we're down there, and then for me, and that's how I met my wife.
Ah.
I met my wife. She was living in Richmond, Virginia, and a nice little Southern girl. She was very beautiful. And I went on a lost weekend. And this other Polish kid and myself, we went to, got a little intoxicated. And next thing you know, I was being woken up on a bus going to nowhere, I thought. And at 5:30 in the morning, he woke me up. He woke the other guy. He says, "Hey, your tickets ran out." I said, "Where are we?" He said, "Richmond, Virginia." So I did, and went to a dance there, and I met my wife. And but that was in probably January, and then I got married in August.
Of what year? What year?
That was, I was saying 1950, Jimmy, Korean War. I don't know, I can't remember so well, but I didn't do anything. I just stayed there, and they sent me to the Mediterranean on the destroyer to train the kids, and 3 months there overseas with the Mediterranean, and came back, and that's when the war was slowing down, so I had enough points to get discharged, and I planned to get married, so we got married while I was in the Navy, and then I didn't want to stay in. I probably would have, but since I got married, I didn't want to do that to my girls, so I got married, and we stayed in Richmond.
Very good.
Then Bobby got famous, and he said, called me up one day. He said, "Tommy, you got to come back into golf." I said, "All right." He says, "Jack is taking over Northampton Country Club." I said, "Fine." I says, "I'll see what I can do, but talk to my wife." And I talked her into going up home and be with my brother. And that's how I got back into golf.
And I'll ask you some of the same questions I asked him. What is the key to you to being a great teacher of golf?
I try to be simple. Don't overdo it. I learned that by trying to, sometimes you overdo it. You're trying to tell them too much. I found out you have to be very simple. Use one or two things that they're doing, and then tell them to come back and see you. And I enjoyed it, and I'm a pretty good teacher, but I worked hard at it.
Yeah.
I studied very hard, and I teach up home now at 92. They still want me to teach there, so at this Western Mass Family Golf Center, owned by these nice people, and it just didn't make being a blood, the golf and Toskis.
Where do you usually start? Obviously, each player is going to have different things they need to work on, but what's most common? Is it keeping the head down, keeping the feet?
The biggest thing is I had a lap. I was down in Florida this winter. Bruce Leisler. I don't know if you know who Bruce Leisler is.
Bruce Fleischer.
He won the national amateur tournament. He's 69 years old. And I was on the range, and he came over. He said, "You Bob Toski's brother?" I said, "Yeah." They always ask me that. Everybody, "Are you Bob Toski's brother?" So he says to me, "Tommy, can I ask you a question?" And he had a couple other people standing there. Evidently, they were talking about teaching. And he says, "Tommy, if you have somebody that's not keeping their balance in the golf swing, what do you do first?" I said, "I check their posture, make them have good posture over the ball. Because if you don't have good posture, you're going to have a lot of problems." Well, I think he jumped about 5 feet off the ground. He said, "I've had a lot of pros. You're the first one that agrees with me." So that's where I start. I start with the basics, posture, and then I go into the golf swing a little bit at a time, timing and keeping yourself in balance all the time. There's the secret to playing golf. If you can keep yourself in balance, because so many people swing, they almost fall down and stuff like that. But that's what I just enjoy teaching that way.
Well, Tom, your legacy as a teacher is quite impressive as well. We thank you for your time today. We thank you for your great service to our country. Thank you.
I'm just so proud of being in the service of what I did and the 5 battle stars I got. They can't take that away from me. And that's how I feel. Yep.
Outstanding. Tom Toski, U.S. Navy veteran of World War II and Korea. This is Veterans Chronicles. Hi, this is Greg Columbus, and thanks for listening to Veterans Chronicles, a presentation of the American Veterans Center. For more information, please visit AmericanVeteransCenter.org. You can also follow the American Veterans Center on Facebook, and on Twitter, we're at AVC Update. Subscribe to the American Veterans Center YouTube channel for full oral histories and special features, and of course, please subscribe to the Veterans Chronicles podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and please join us next time for Veterans Chronicles.